who put that on 50. That's why 50 hate them so much.
I looked at that experience as something that was unfortunate that I had to.
I forget, why did the guy shoot you 9 times? Was it drugs or something?
He was paid to do it.
He was paid to do
Gene
it.
Deal just set the internet on fire with a revelation that's got both the industry and the street side eyeing hard. In a resurfaced clip, Gene didn't hold back. He said that old beef between G-Unit and their rivals, it wasn't just about records or egos. Nope, it went way deeper, straight into territory that had nothing to do with music.
Day 50 Cent was shot. I was walking through, and BMF was there too. Meechnam was there too.
According to Gene, Ja Rule wasn't just firing off diss tracks. Behind the scenes, he was allegedly applying real pressure. Gene claims Ja threw $25,000 on the table and not for anything petty. That's the number he says was floating around, directly tied to one name, 50 Cent.
Who has more cred than you, living after being shot 9 fucking times?
I don't know what the criteria are for street credibility. Or
That's
if
it.
If there's something that creates more.
But here's where it gets wilder. Gene claims Irv Gotti knew every single move being made. He didn't sugarcoat it. Straight up, Gene said Ja Rule and Irv were putting out contracts. Those were his exact words. And in circles where rap beef and street business overlap, that kind of talk hits different. That $25,000 wasn't just a number, it was a signal. Gene doubled down during a podcast sit down, saying this wasn't hearsay. These whispers floated through green rooms, studios, and backdoors where music and mayhem got dangerously close.
Karma.
Karma.
Explain to me again why this guy was hired to shoot you 9 times.
Well, he was paid because someone, felt like that I would potentially do something to them if they kept going in the direction that they were going.
Gene painted a chilling picture: artists, execs, affiliates, all allegedly aware of this dangerous undercurrent. So here's the big question. Was this just wild posturing in hip-hop's craziest era? Or was something much darker lurking in the background? Either way, Gene didn't flinch. He tossed this grenade into the conversation, and now everyone's watching with wide eyes. No charges, no accountability, but the timeline, it still speaks volumes.
As they worked the deal out for Irv Gotti and them to give 50 $250,000.
Gene Deal's latest revelations have cracked open a chapter most thought was buried for good. According to him, this was never just rap rivalry, it ran way deeper. Let's rewind. It started with 50 Cent trading shots with Ja Rule and Irv Gotti verbal. Jabs, public chaos, the whole circus. But then it got real. At the Hit Factory, 50 clashed with a crew member, and this wasn't just industry gossip. Black Child, part of their squad, outright admitted to pulling a blade on 50. Wild, right? But it didn't end there. Months later, 50 was ambushed outside his grandmother's home, an attack that changed everything. Federal investigators never officially tied Ja or Irv to the hit, but Gene's claims have fans and insiders looking at that era with fresh, suspicious eyes. He's saying the key players knew a lot more than they ever let slip.
Just got shot, and he in ICU. I say, 50 what?
And the deeper Gene digs, the heavier the names get. One bombshell, his claim about Murder Inc.'s tight connection to Supreme, a figure with serious pull and deep ties to the label. 50 even called him out in Ghetto Quran, a track many believe crossed an unforgivable line. But Gene isn't speculating. He was there, working as Diddy's bodyguard during the height of G-Unit and Bad Boy. Gene had a front row seat to power plays that blurred the line between music and the streets.
That Irv Gotti and them had put it out there like they was a part of it and they was gonna do it that night, the day at the meeting.
Gene says artists, execs, and insiders were all allegedly turning a blind eye while major plays were being made. And this isn't just hip-hop history, it's something much darker. Gene's not dropping random tea. He's breaking a code most in his position wouldn't dare touch. But why now? Why stay silent nearly 20 years only to speak out today? Gene says it's simple, the truth got buried, and too many people cashed in on that silence. But he's done keeping quiet. What he revealed next, it pulls Irv Gotti straight into the crosshairs. According to Gene, while Supreme was the feared name on the streets, Irv was the mastermind behind closed doors. Not just a music exec, but a tactician playing both sides of the game. Another shocker? Gene claims Irv and Ya tried to settle things first. They allegedly offered 50 a cool $250,000 to squash the beef. To broker peace, they even tapped Ches Williams, a respected og trusted by both camps. But when 50 refused, Gene says the vibe turned ice cold. That's when Irv's crew shifted gears. Funding moves that were way more aggressive. Gene now paints Irv as a man with two faces, polished CEO in boardrooms, but something else entirely behind the curtain. Was he just running a label or pulling strings in ways that went far beyond music? That's the question Gene's now forcing the culture to ask. Let's keep it real when you say Murder Inc., one name towers above the rest, Irv Gotti. He wasn't just the CEO, he was the movement, the architect of Ya Rule's rise, and a man who moved like hip-hop royalty. But those close to the action say Irv's reach stretched far past platinum plaques. Insiders whispered about connections that weren't just friendships. His TIs to Supreme, that wasn't casual. Supreme held real weight in Queens, and Irv was right in that inner circle. So when the feds came knocking in the early 2000s, accusing Murder Inc. of washing street money, it wasn't out of the blue. Headlines exploded. Allegations got heavy.so when Gene now suggests Irv might have made or at least greenlit a street level call when things with 50 heated up. People aren't shocked. Gene's accusation isn't subtle. It's bold, and it's got everybody rethinking that era.
The headlines were loud and the allegations were serious. So when Gene deals
Irv's reach back then, it was so deep he didn't need to lift a finger. One nod from him and people around him could set things in motion. That's the level of power Gene's hinting at, straight boss moves, no middleman required. And let's be real, the tension between Irv and 50 Cent was never just about mixtape jabs or flashy music videos. This beef went off the rails fast. Remember the hit Factory? 50 was stabbed during a clash, and later, Irv's camp tried flipping the narrative, waving paperwork around like it wasn't what it seemed. But Gene Deal, he's not buying it. He says when you stack these moments, the picture gets way messier than any diss track ever revealed. And when things hit a breaking point, Irv and his team pulled a new card labeling 50 a snitch. But according to Gene, that wasn't based on facts. It was pure damage control, a last-ditch effort to smear 50's street cred when nothing else stuck. Mediation talks had already collapsed. Then, suddenly, darker rumors started swirling. And the wildest part, Irv's been doing interviews for years now, brushing off any involvement like it was all some big misunderstanding.
failed, and suddenly the whispers got louder. That's when the darker rumors started floating. But what's even wilder, Irv's been hitting interview chairs for years now, still brushing off his involvement like it was all one.
Across platforms, Irv's told the same sob story, claiming he was blackballed by the industry while 50 thrived. He even once said 50 got the devil on his side, a chilling comment that hits different. Why say something like that unless you really felt like you tried everything to shut a man down? That quote came straight from Irv's Vlad TV sit-down, raw and unfiltered. But Gene, he's flipping Irv's entire narrative upside down. He says Irv wasn't blackballed, he just got exposed. All those behind-the-scenes power plays, all those connections, they couldn't shield him once the truth started leaking out. And here's the kicker. 50 Cent himself co-signed Gene's version. He's publicly called Gene one of the only ones in this industry who keeps it 100. That endorsement says a lot, especially when Irv's still out here doing podcasts, painting himself as the victim left behind by the game. But if you ask Gene and now 50, it wasn't the game that left him. He simply ran out of places to hide. Gene doesn't mince words. He claims Irv wasn't just involved. He was orchestrating it, placing both the motive and the money right in Irv's lap. That's huge. Even with all their investigations, feds never went on record to make that leap. But Gene, he's saying it loud and clear, and he doesn't stop there. He claims this wasn't just a street-level beef, it was covered up at the highest levels. When 50 Cent was ambushed outside his grandmother's house in 2000, it should have sent shockwaves through hip-hop. A rising star nearly taken out in broad daylight, you'd expect outrage. Press conferences, artists posting support. But what happened? Nothing. Radio silence. According to Gene, that hush wasn't accidental. It was calculated. He says Supreme, who held major sway both in the streets and the music biz, had connections deep enough to keep everyone quiet, and Supreme wasn't alone. Gene drops another name, Jimmy Henchman, another heavyweight with one foot in the industry and the other in the streets. Henchman wasn't just a random player. He was managing artists like The Game and moving with serious influence behind the scenes. Later, he'd land behind bars for a case linked to one of 50's people, Lodi Mac. When you combine Henchman's shadow with Supreme's, it paints a picture of the kind of heat 50 was under back then. And Gene's saying the industry didn't just stand by, they helped seal the lid.
Pull. Years later, He'd end up behind bars for a case tied to one of 50 Cent's crew members, Lodi Mack. That's it.
This wasn't just rap beef. This was a slow-burning storm fueled by ego, cash, and a wall of silence. Gene Deal's message hits hard. 50 Cent wasn't just fighting rivals with mix. He was boxed in by enemies with real power, deep pockets, legal teams, and street TIs that ran heavy. When 50 got lit up outside his grandmother's house, the industry didn't rally. They retreated, some out of fear. Others, Gene says, because they were still cutting deals with the very people who wanted 50 gone. To make it worse, 50 wasn't treated like a survivor. He was treated like a problem. Columbia Records iced him out almost overnight, shelving power of the dollar without a shred of concern. No statements, no support. Instead, big publications flipped the script, pushing a narrative like 50 brought it on himself, like he deserved it. He became blackball labeled too risky, too loud, too dangerous to back. And why? Not because of the music, but because 50 had a habit of exposing things people wanted buried. How to Rob already made him a target, but Ghetto Quran was the final straw. That track didn't just throw shots, it pulled back curtains on connections between rappers and street operations. He blurred the line between bars and intel. And for power players who controlled narratives, that was unforgivable, with Supreme's shadow stretching across labels and Jimmy henchmen tied to big-name acts. 50E's rise felt less like a come-up and more like a threat, not to hip-hop, but to the machine behind it. By the time the dust settled, one thing was clear: no label wanted 50 Cent, not because of talent, not because of numbers, but because he came with heat, the kind of baggage that sent execs scrambling for cover instead of protecting an artist who barely survived a life-changing hit. The industry turned its back. They acted like he was the chaos, not the target. But Gene Deal says that silence wasn't just fear, it was calculated. A hush designed to keep the real shot callers untouched. While the machine kept spinning, then it gets darker. Just weeks after the hit on 50, Daryl Homo Bomb, a figure tied to Supreme's inner circle, was gone. The timing? Too perfect. Whether it was fallout or cleanup, Gene's point is sharp: it worked. After that, nobody talked. Not to cops, not to press, not even in whispers behind closed doors. Gann says this wasn't just bad luck, it was a system. A machine built to shield Murder Inc., protect Supreme from any blowback, and erase anyone or anything that threatened to expose the truth. Meanwhile, 50 Cent wasn't being punished for stirring chaos, he was punished for surviving it. And now the question cuts even deeper. How many industry insiders knew the real story but chose to stay silent? How many execs looked the other way when things didn't add up? How many careers were built by siding with the wrong players while 50 was left standing alone, labeled a threat? Because when he took those bullets and lived, that wasn't just survival, it was a problem for a lot of people. But here's the twist: 50 never let that moment define him. He flipped his pain into power. The scars, the trauma, the near-death experience, they became the foundation for one of hip-hop's most legendary brand stories. After walking away from something that should have ended it all, he wasn't just another rapper from Queens anymore. He became untouchable. He became bulletproof, and the world couldn't look away. But now Gene Deal is flipping that entire narrative upside down. He says what fans celebrated as pure grit and luck, it wasn't random at all. According to Gann, it was survival against a plan, a setup that insiders quietly understood but never dared speak about. One thing's for sure: 50 never played the victim. He didn't beg for sympathy. He turned his pain into legend. When Get Rich or Die Trying dropped everything, the album covers, the press shots screamed survival. That bulletproof vest, not for style, it symbolized everything he overcame. Even in interviews, 50 kept it cool, calm, and razor sharp. I got hit 9 times. I'm still here. Now what? That wasn't a tagline. That was a warning. And the music, tracks like Many Men weren't just chart toppers, they were open wounds set to haunting beats. When he rapped, "Many men wish death upon me," it wasn't a punchline. It was a memory. It was a message. Fans didn't just hear it, they felt it. But now Gann is saying those raw, powerful moments we all thought were born out of tragedy might have been the result of something far darker, a plot wrapped in silence. And here's the haunting part: after everything 50 went through, one question still hangs heavy: how did nobody ever answer for what happened? He was ambushed in broad daylight, nearly killed. The industry knew, the streets knew, yet no one stood trial. No one paid the price. No one took the fall. And Gene Deal keeps hammering that uncomfortable truth. How does something this serious just Vanish? We all know the name that floated around Homo, a known associate of Supreme. Word was he pulled the trigger, but just weeks after the attack on 50, Homo was gone. No trial, no charges, no headlines. Just silence.as for Supreme. Yeah, he was eventually brought down, but not for anything tied to 50. His charges were on a whole different level. By then, the damage was already done. So who spoke up? Who stepped forward and said, this isn't right? Nobody, not the labels, not the press, not even the courts. And that's the exact point Gene keeps bringing up. He says this wasn't some random act of street violence. It was calculated, coordinated, backed by people with enough power to make entire stories disappear. According to Gene, the only reason 50 Cent survived that night was threefold: luck, timing, and God. Without those three aligning perfectly, Gene swears 50 wouldn't be here today. And he didn't say it like a theory, he said it like a man who knows how close things came to the edge. Even federal court records seem to back parts of his claim. Wiretaps, testimonies, internal notes, they all painted a picture of affiliates from Murder Inc. and people tied to Supreme monitoring 50's every move. Gene says this wasn't just a beef, it was surveillance, plotting, waiting for the perfect window, and in a chilling twist, even Jam Master Jay's murder investigation reportedly looked into potential links to 50. Why? Because Jay was warned, don't work with him. That's how far the fear spread. That's how deep the silence went. This blacklist didn't just freeze 50 Cent out of the industry, insulated the very people who stood to lose everything if the truth ever leaked. And now, Gandeal is aiming the spotlight at one of the most recognizable names in the saga, Ja Rule. But Gene isn't just dragging up old beef, he's asking the tough question, was Ja really the mastermind? Or just the face of something way bigger? Sure, Ja Rule had motive. He was deep in the feud with 50. But according to Gan, that doesn't mean he was calling the shots. He hints that Ya may have been front and center in the drama while the real power players were moving pieces above his pay grade. For years, Ya's painted himself as the misunderstood artist in all this. In interviews, he frames it like a classic. Rap beef gone too far, a stolen chain here, some egos clashing there, and suddenly it's snowballed out of control. But if Gan's right, that narrative barely scratches the surface. Ja Rule's been painting 50 as the bully for years, the guy who stirred the pot, pushed too far, and then somehow flipped it to look like the victim. He even told Math Hoffa that 50 pulled off the impossible, being both the aggressor and the underdog at the same time. Like he caused all the chaos, yet still managed to walk away with sympathy from the streets and the industry. But Gene Deal, he's not buying it, not for a second. He's calling Ya's version exactly what he thinks it is, a cover-up. Gene says Ya's been downplaying his role for decades, keeping interviews light and breezy. He talks about bars, battles, and bravado, but never touches the real weight of what went down. According to Gene, just because Ya didn't get his hands dirty doesn't mean he wasn't in the room when things were being plotted. That innocent artist caught in the crossfire narrative, Gene says it's cracking wide open. For years, Ya pushed the idea that the drama was all media hype, a rap feud that 50 Cent milked for sympathy and headlines. But Gene says that whole storyline was carefully built. Even after the infamous stabbing at the Hit Factory, Ya flipped the script. He told the public 50 ran to file a restraining order, trying to make him look soft, scared, and like he broke the street code. But Gene's not letting that slide. He claims the paperwork Ya flashed wasn't legit, it was a smear tactic, a calculated move to trash 50's street credibility at a time when toughness meant everything. And here's where Gene gets blunt. He says Ya wasn't just the voice of Murder Inc., he was present, involved, and fully aware of what was being discussed. Gan even said it outright. Ya knew the play, but instead of owning any part of it, Gene says Ya stood back and let Irv take all the heat. And when it comes to public perception, Ya's played it like a pro, quick with the jokes, throwing shade at 50 in interviews, dropping memes, and laughing it off like the beef was just entertainment. But if Gene Deal's right, there's nothing funny about what was really going on behind closed doors. But every time the deeper story bubbles up, the real street whispers, the behind-the-scenes moves Ya dodges. He keeps it vague, keeps it playful, like he's above it all. Gene Deal says that silence isn't accidental, it's calculated. Because if Ya really was just some misunderstood artist caught in crossfire, why does his name keep surfacing? In conversations about retaliation, cover-ups, and serious street-level chess moves. Why does Murder Inc. stay tied to hip-hop's darkest chapters? Gene's not sugarcoating any of it. He's saying out loud what others have only dared to whisper. Ja Rule wasn't just singing hooks. He was standing close to the fire, and that I was just the artist act. Gene's calling it straight up cap. According to him, Ya's public denials weren't just about saving face, they were part of a carefully orchestrated campaign that kicked off the moment federal heat landed on Murder Inc. Suddenly, Ya transformed into the peaceful creative, the misunderstood talent who got unfairly blackballed by the industry, but Gene isn't buying it. He says that victim narrative wasn't born from truth, it was born out of survival. Behind the curtain, Ya wasn't watching chaos unfold. He was helping fuel the very machine that turned on 50 Cent. And Gene's timing, it's no accident either. Right now, Irv Gotti's out here doing the podcast rounds again, spinning his "we were targeted" story, still playing the victim. But fans aren't so quick to buy it anymore. With hip-hop skeletons getting dragged into the light, people are rethinking everything Murder Inc. sold them. Ya can keep cracking jokes in interviews, dropping memes, and brushing it all off. But Gene's message is cutting through all the noise. He's saying it loud and raw. I was there, and Ya ain't innocent. Then comes the real bombshell. Gene's warning has the streets buzzing. This isn't over. More names are coming. He makes it clear this isn't some random clout chase. This is the start of a reckoning, and when you look at the pattern, the timing explains itself. Gene isn't just gossiping. He's peeling back layers designed to stay buried. And if what he's dropping is just the beginning, the next chapter could rewrite how fans view this entire era. Right now, the music industry feels like it's in free fall. All those guardrails that once protected the powerful, crumbling. The Diddy raids, lawsuits, leaked documents, they're blowing the doors off hip-hop's darkest secrets. And standing in the eye of that storm, Gene Deal, louder than ever, unafraid, and with no plans to back down. Remember, Gene isn't some armchair commentator. He lived this. As Diddy's bodyguard during Bad Boy's wildest years, he wasn't hearing stories, he was in the room. He's not speculating. He's bringing receipts. And now, Gene's firing shots at Diddy himself. According to him, their fallout wasn't just business. Gene claims Diddy wanted him gone years ago, silenced. But with Puff facing federal charges, trafficking accusations, and even whispers of a possible RICO case, Gene's making one thing clear: I'm not going down with him. And here's the kicker: Gene's not stopping at Diddy. Now he's turning that same fire straight at Irv Gotti, who's been everywhere lately. Drink champs. Big interviews all over social media rebranding Murder Inc. like he's rewriting history. Irv's been pushing this clean, glossy narrative, painting himself as the misunderstood mogul who just got caught in the crossfire of beef and bad luck. But Gene Deal, he's not buying a single word of it. From East Coast power moves to the fallout after Biggie's murder, Gene says he was in the room when things got dark, real dark. And now, with the industry's deepest secrets starting to leak out, Gene isn't pulling any punches. This isn't just venting. This is a full-on warning shot. See, Gene says this isn't just about Diddy or Irv. It's about an entire system that's been crooked from the jump. And now, he's finally dropping names. For years, Irv Gotti and Ja Rule have been selling the same safe story. They were just label bosses and artists caught up in a wild era, innocent bystanders to the chaos. But Gan Deal's calling BS. He says Irv and Ya spent 2 decades rewriting the script, acting like they weren't in the backrooms making real-life plays when 50 Cent's name came up with an actual price tag attached. This wasn't just music politics or rap beef. According to Gene, it was something way more dangerous. And now, Ja Rule's back on stage, performing the classics, laughing it up with fans like those years were just hip-hop history. But Gene, he's not laughing. He's not letting this slide. His message is sharp. This ain't over. This isn't some bitter man clinging to old drama either. Gene says he's got personal reasons for speaking now. He's drawing a hard line between what he witnessed and what he was involved in. For him, this isn't gossip, it's survival. With RICO rumors swirling, lawsuits stacking up, and federal eyes on hip-hop's elite, Gene knows exactly how this game plays out. But make no mistake, Gene says this isn't about saving his own skin. He's tired of watching powerful names dodge accountability while victims get erased from the narrative. He's tired of trauma being repackaged as marketing campaigns. For Gene, this isn't storytelling, it's a fight to reclaim the truth. before it gets buried under platinum plaques and podcast soundbites forever. And here's where it gets complicated. Is Gandil really telling the whole truth? Or is he flipping the script before someone flips it on him? That's the question. Splitting the room, some say he's a hero, a whistleblower brave enough to break the industry's unspoken code and expose how deep the rot runs. They call him one of the only voices daring to peel back layers most insiders won't touch. Others aren't so sure. They see a man trying to rewrite his own role in the story before someone else drags his name through the mud. A man trying to get ahead of the storm before it catches him too. But the wildest part, nobody's really stepping up to shut Gene down. Not Irv, not Ya, not Diddy, not one of the big names he's calling out. So what does that tell you? Because if Gandil is telling the truth, then somebody out there still got blood on their hands. And the music industry, it might still be hiding. Bodies behind those shiny Billboard charts, stay locked in. This story, far from over.